It appears that we are in for an action-packed week on General Hospital. ABC released a teaser on Monday, June 16th, that included a proposal, a threat, and a well-deserved smack. Drew's repentance following Willow and Michael's custody case. General Hospital tells fans, "Nah, you can't get no satisfaction." Plus, has Drew been replaced as the show's most hated character? First, we hear Sidwell ominously say, "I want to end your influence in this city," to Sonny of all people. Countless others have came and gone, both good and bad, seeking the same aim. Will Sidwell be the one to get the job done? Maybe he should partner up with Ada Turner. We have a feeling their portrayers would get along. Next, someone, perhaps Michael? He surprises Willow by telling her, "This never should have happened." Perhaps he is implying that they should never have split up in the first place all those years ago. You'll recall that they only did so because she and Chase appeared to be having an affair in order for Michael and Willow to marry and win custody of Wiley. Brooke Lynn was never one to hide her emotions. Her passion, loyalty, and impulsiveness were as much a part of her DNA as her Quartermaine heritage. When the tension between her and Lulu eventually boiled over, it was the piercing, echoing sound of a slap that signaled the end of the relationship. The moment arrived at the worst possible time. After months of disarray, the family had only recently begun to regain control. Tracy had returned to town, causing all kinds of professional and personal upheaval. Ned and Olivia were warily attempting to manage their marriage anew. Brooke Lynn for once had found happiness, both in her singing and in her newfound sense of purpose. But everything fell apart when Lulu, whether consciously or unwittingly, reinserted herself into the narrative. Her very presence irritated Brooke Lynn's already strained emotions, and when words turned to accusations that Brooke Lynn did not deserve Chase, or that she was using the family name for personal gain, it was as if a switch flipped. Lulu had that effect on others. She could disguise malice with care, making arrogance appear compassionate. Brooke Lynn, who had battled tooth and nail to restore herself after every mistake and tragedy, would not tolerate anyone questioning her integrity, especially Lulu Spencer. Their brawl began in the Quartermaine foyer, where voices were frequently heard and egos fought with wild abandon. At first, it was only strong tones and hostile eyes. But when Lulu persisted in hinting that Brooke Lynn didn't actually understand what love meant, that her relationship with Chase was a fantasy escape from her own emptiness, Brooke Lynn reached her breaking point. She slapped Lulu in the face in one rapid motion. The room froze. Even the Quartermaines put up a startling performance. Olivia gasped. Ned took a half-step forward, unsure if he should intervene or simply move out of the way. Chase, who had been in the next room, stepped through the doorway just in time to see Lulu's hand press against her reddened cheek. "Brooke Lynn," Olivia cried, but it was a plea rather than a punishment. Brooke Lynn did not flinch. Her chest swelled and fell with the weight of 1,000 unsaid arguments. Her palm trembled slightly, not from regret, but from the sheer excitement of the situation. "You don't get to judge me," she answered quietly and coldly. "You do not know me. Not anymore." Lulu's look was unreadable. A mix of amazement, wrath, and perhaps a sad realization that she had gone too far. However, as explosive as the confrontation was, it wasn't the most shocking occurrence of the day. Something else was going on at Port Charles. Someone else was about to take a significant action that could change their lives forever. The name that kept fluttering on everyone's lips in hushed tones was Dante. Dante had been debating the notion for several weeks. He'd watched Lulu return to town and fall back into old habits. Her presence, despite its emotional complexity, reminded him of their former relationship. But, more importantly, it reminded him that he had gone on. He had created something new, something tangible with Sam. They'd been through difficult times, raised their children together, and created a rhythm that seemed authentic. Still, a part of him was worried. Would Lulu's homecoming unravel everything they had? Would unresolved feelings from the past poison his present? But clarity arrived in the simplest of ways. His decision was not prompted by a stunning revelation or a catastrophe. It was seeing Sam help Rocco with his schoolwork one calm evening, smiling gently when he botched a word and patiently coaching him without showing any signs of stress. It was how she unintentionally stroked Dante's arm as she passed him in the kitchen, or how she knew what he needed before he asked. Every day they chose to live the life they had created together. So he planned. Nothing showy. There are no fireworks or complex plots. Just something intimate, something genuine. A peaceful supper, a bottle of wine, and a tiny velvet box put away for the perfect moment. Dante was a man who was both action-oriented and intellectual. He understood the weight of a pledge. And when he drew Sam close that night, looking into her eyes and saying her name as if it were a prayer, she realized something was different. He grabbed into his pocket, heart racing. "Sam," he replied, his voice unsteady but full of confidence. "I love you. I hope to spend the rest of my life with you. Will you marry me?" For a heartbeat, she just looked, her lips parted in astonished quiet. Then tears welled up in her eyes, happy, grateful tears, and she nodded, letting out a hoarse giggle. Back at the Quartermain mansion, the vibe remained tense. Lulu had left, nursing both her pride and the new sting on her face. Olivia had pulled Brooklyn away in an attempt to de-escalate the situation, but Brooklyn was not having it. "She pushed me," she explained. "She acts as if she's above everything. As if she had never made a mistake." "You're right," Olivia responded gently. "But that doesn't mean you have to stoop to her level." "I didn't stoop," Brooklyn said, clearly upset. "I drew a line." Chase, for his part, was not angry. He did not chastise or retreat. He just stood near her. That was all Brooklyn needed in that moment. Not someone to cure things, but someone who would not desert her because of it. Later that night, once the house had quieted down and the storm had passed, Brooklyn sat in her old bedroom, staring at her mirror. She felt raw and exposed. The slap didn't fix anything, actually. If anything, it made everything worse. But it had been honest. It had been her truth. She heard a gentle knock. "It's me," Chase announced through the door. She allowed him in. He didn't speak much. I stepped over, knelt by her and took her hand. "I know you," he said. "I know your heart. You don't need to explain." Meanwhile, news of Dante's plan traveled rapidly. Carly heard it first. Sam had called her, delighted and joyful in a way she hadn't heard in a long time. Hearing the news secondhand, Jason felt an odd mix of relief and melancholy. He'd always wanted Sam to be happy. However, it did remind him of what he had lost. He was no longer at the center of her world, which could be a good thing. Perhaps it meant she was finally free from the burden of loving him for so long. At Kelly's, the gossip spread quickly. Maxie almost dropped her coffee. "Are you serious?" she asked Lulu, who had arrived the next morning with sunglasses concealing her face, blaming the swelling on a careless stumble. "To whom?" "Sam." Maxie leaned in. "What were you expecting? You disappear for years and expect him to wait forever?" Lulu didn't respond. She simply stirred her tea, her eyes downcast. Part of her wanted to believe that Dante would always be hers in some manner. She had not prepared for this new world. It wasn't only Brooklyn's slap that hurt. It was the awareness that the life she knew no longer existed. Everyone had moved on, grown. I found fresh love and a new purpose. And she? She was still caught between the past and the prospect of a future she didn't know how to achieve. Brooklyn avoided Lulu in the days that followed, not out of fear, but because she had nothing more to say. If Lulu desired war, she'd have to fight it alone. Brooklyn has other priorities, such as her romance, music, and personal healing. Chase encouraged her to use her energy for something productive, and she did. She wrote, late into the night, lyrics that ache, fly, and shout. Despite their dysfunction, the Quartermains came together in their own unique way. Tracy sent Lulu a sharp message. If you can't handle a little honesty, maybe don't provoke the family. Ned stayed diplomatically mute, but he did make an effort to spend more time with Brooklyn, expressing quiet support. The engagement re-energized her, lifting her out of the shadows of grief and uncertainty. She and Dante prepared discreetly, prioritizing intention above spectacle. They didn't need a large wedding. They simply needed each other. And despite whispers and reservations from some quarters, those who believed it was too quick or that the past would find a way to interfere, they pressed on with quiet confidence. Not everyone would be pleased. Lulu would need time to adjust, if not accept, then at least cope with it. Brooklyn would constantly face criticism. Despite the upheaval, love managed to flourish again. According to General Hospital spoilers, while Drew Kane was debating whether or not to end his relationship with Willow Tate Corinthos on Friday, June 13th, he will do a complete 180 in the coming days and propose to his gal pal, who is now dealing with her mental health. Drew summoned Jason Morgan at the June 13th episode in the hopes that he could convey a message to Michael Corinthos. After speaking with Martin Gray, Drew appeared to have concluded that leaving Willow would be best for her, especially because he was the main reason she lost her custody lawsuit. It also appeared that this was the precise proposal he'd be making to Jason, who would then repeat it to Michael. However, the GH teaser for the week of June 16th to 20th appears to offer a completely different tale, as a clip is shown of a very anxious Jason telling Carly Spencer that Drew would not give up. The promo concludes with Drew asking Willow to marry him. Jason appears to be unwilling to accept Drew's proposal on the Monday, June 16th episode. In fact, GH teaser suggests Jason will be a thorn in Drew's side. The two could argue, and given their bad history, if Drew offers something really outrageous, Jason may dismiss him outright. It's unlikely that Jason would oppose Drew's suggestion that he leave Willow, so Drew may come up with some crazy notion in which he hopes to trick Jason or Michael into consenting to shared custody of Wiley Corinthos and Amelia Corinthos. Drew may conclude that the children need their mother, as well as Willow, given her mental collapse immediately after the judge revealed her decision to award Michael full custody of Wiley and Amelia. Jason will undoubtedly deny Drew's offer, which may shock his twin, but where will he get the idea for him and Willow to marry? His proposal during the GH peak appears frantic, as if he is contemplating eloping or a fast wedding. Could Nina Reeves again threaten to reveal their affair? Given her daughter's delicate mental state, this is not a good idea, but she also wants Willow to be happy with her children. The affair news could be the catalyst that brings Willow back to reality and forces her to finally rip the cutthroat lawmaker loose. Drew could concoct a scheme to further manipulate Willow if he is concerned about Nina's revelation. Even though Martin Gray stated that Willow had a slim chance of winning a custody appeal, Drew may convince her that fighting as a single Michael, rather than as a married pair, is the best option. After all, his and Willow's marriage would provide the children with a truly stable family home. As a result, they would need to get married straight away. Willow is crazy and wants to reclaim her children, so she may fall for Drew's con. Even if she discovers the truth about his romance with her mother, it will be extremely difficult for her to end their relationship once they are married. According to General Hospital previews, Drew is betting on it, knowing that after he and Willow are legally married, all he has to do is entice her to want Wiley and Amelia back, and she may stay with him despite his falsehoods. Willow had spent the most of her life attempting to find peace, rebuilding her identity in a world where every new fact threatened to tear it apart anew. The discovery about Wiley came first, followed by cancer, Nina, and Michael's betrayal. And just when she thought she could rest and breathe, life hit her with another emotional storm. Drew Kane was the calm, powerful, and constant eye of the storm, but there was something more beneath that stability. A desperate energy developing between them both, raw and unspoken. Drew had attempted to keep his emotions in check, especially when Willow was involved. His relationship with Carly was still vivid in his mind, despite the fact that it had long since frayed. Carly had shut herself off, consumed with her own upheaval. Jason, Sonny, the remains of the Metro court sale, while Drew had become increasingly drawn to Willow. Initially it was about Wiley. Drew had stepped in to help the boy after Michael became embroiled in ELQ's internal fights, and the consequences of his decision to remove himself from Sonny. Willow had enjoyed Drew's attention. His presence provided stability during a time when her world was slipping again. However, what began as a friendship quickly evolved into something else. Willow found herself thinking about Drew more frequently. It was simple at first, wondering if he'd stop by the Quartermain estate, or recalling something amusing he said during one of Wiley's baseball practices. But then it evolved into something heavier. Something she attempted to ignore but couldn't. Drew stared at her with quiet awe and unwavering respect, rather than pity or obligation. That was unusual in Willow's universe. Drew noticed it too. He knew he shouldn't have felt that tug when Willow smiled or touched his hand in gratitude. But it was there. Real. And it terrified him, not because he didn't want it but because he did. Desperately. Everything changed the night Willow arrived at Drew's flat. It was late, and the rain was falling in sheets. Her hair was drenched, and her clothes clung to her body. Her eyes contained something: fear, grief, and evident determination. Drew let her in without saying anything, grabbed a towel and waited. She didn't say anything for several minutes, simply stood in his living room, shivering and mute. Then she said it. "Michael and I are over." The words echoed. She described everything. The battles, the emotional distance, and the ultimate showdown in which she accused him of manipulating her forgiveness, as if it were simply another technique in a business takeover. She was finished. In the silence that followed, she gazed at Drew with an expression that made his heart sink. She wasn't just mourning a romance. She was looking for a lifeline. Drew offered it without hesitation. They did not sleep together that night. They spoke all night. They laughed, grieved, and reflected on both the worst and greatest aspects of their lives. Drew sensed something had changed when Willow snuggled up on the couch next him and placed her head on his shoulder shortly before daybreak. It wasn't simply about longing anymore. It was inevitable. Days passed and the chatter began almost immediately. Brooke Lynn spotted them in Kelly's. Nina, ever the hawk, overheard a conversation and informed Sonny, who immediately confronted Drew. But Drew refused to back down. He made it apparent that he had no intention of concealing whatever it was with Willow. Whether it was a romance, a bond, or something else entirely, it was real. And it mattered. Willow's strength returned in chunks. The more time she spent with Drew, the more she appeared to shed the layers of trauma and sorrow that had been plaguing her since her cancer diagnosis. He had her laughing again. He made her feel alive. And this terrified her. Because it wasn't supposed to be this way. Then came the proposition. It was not romantic in the classic sense. No bouquets, no violins, and no dramatic declarations. The incident occurred in the Quartermaine kitchen, after Wiley had gone to bed and the house was quiet. Willow had mentioned wanting a fresh start, a clean break from the moniker Corinthos, the drama, and the never-ending tug-of-war between Michael and Sonny. She expressed a need for something personal, a new identity, something stable for her kids. Drew gave her a deep look before saying, "Marry me." She blinked. "What?" "Marry me," he repeated. "Not someday. Not next year. Now. Let's do it. Let us quit pretending that we don't already feel like a family." Willow did not respond soon away. She moved to the sink and looked out at the black lawn beyond the window. It was a wild concept. They had only just admitted their feelings. But something inside her whispered that it wasn't crazy at all, that it was the most sensible decision she could make. They got married within 48 hours. It was a brief ceremony with only a few people in attendance. Michael was not invited. Carly learned this from Donna, who overheard Jocelyn on the phone. Sonny found out from Diane. Nina found out via tabloid, and her reaction was nuclear. Willow didn't seem to care. For the first time in years, she felt like she was doing something for herself. Not for Wiley. It's not about appearances. For her. Drew stood beside her at the courthouse, his hand warm against hers. He did not flinch. He did not hesitate. His vows were short, straightforward, and full of calm emotion. Willow's voice quivered as she spoke, but her gaze remained steady. When the judge called them husband and wife, she felt relieved rather than nervous or regretful, and a peculiar sense of peace. But General Hospital does not allow peace to last. Almost quickly, the ramifications started. Michael arrived at the gatehouse the day after the ceremony and demanded to see Wiley. He was furious. Drew was accused of stealing his family and of manipulating Willow when she was vulnerable. Willow stood firm. "You pushed me away," she replied. "You treated me as if I were simply another piece in your power games." Drew reminded me that I am more than that. Meanwhile, Nina initiated her own campaign, first to discredit the marriage in the eyes of the public, and then to regain her relationship with Willow through Avery. But Willow wasn't buying it. "You burned every bridge, Nina," she stated bitterly. "I'm not rebuilding it just because you're suddenly threatened by someone else in my life." Carly was more complicated. Her relationship with Drew had deteriorated since Jason's return, and despite her best efforts, there was a clear strain between them. She once addressed Willow privately and questioned if the marriage was a rebound. Willow did not raise her voice, but her response was evident. "It isn't about forgetting what I did with Michael. It's about deciding what I deserve now." Jason watched everything from a distance. He'd returned to a world on fire, with Sunny's empire shattered, Carly split, Michael crazy, and Drew married to someone who used to seem like family. He didn't speak much, but his silence spoke volumes. He was measuring everything, waiting for the appropriate opportunity to intervene. But where? With whom? Tracy also had an opinion. She confronted Drew at the Quartermain estate, warning him that the family did not need another hasty marriage with emotional baggage. Drew did not flinch. "I've survived much worse than disapproval," he informed her. "And I'm not going to apologize for choosing someone who makes me feel whole." However, there were cracks. Willow wrestled with guilt. Not just Michael but Wiley, who had a problematic new stepfather dynamic and was too little to grasp why Daddy no longer lived at home. Drew continually comforted her. He read bedtime stories, packed lunches, and attended all school events. He was dependable. Willow knew, however, that reliability did not imply permanence. And nothing in Port Charles ever remained simple. Months passed, and whispers of an annulment circulated. Brooke Lynn mentioned at a Metro Court luncheon that Willow appeared trapped, and Jocelyn told Trina that she didn't trust Drew's motives. Trina, the voice of reason, stated, "People grow. Perhaps this is Drew's development. Maybe it's Willow's." Then came the hospital fear. Willow fell during her visit to the GH pediatric wing. Drew hurried her to the ER, and as the professionals scrambled to rule out a relapse of her illness, the stress nearly shattered him. He stayed by her side and refused to go. When the results came back negative, he burst into tears, the first time Willow had ever seen him cry. That moment, more than any wedding vow, forged an unbreakable bond between them. But Port Charles thrives under strain. And as Valentine made moves at ELQ, Sunny's adversaries circled, and Jason's silence turned to calculating. Drew and Willow's relationship was tested from all sides. There were major secrets. Lies told to protect, half-truths uttered with tenderness, and manipulations used to keep Wiley out of harm's way. And behind it all was one truth. Their marriage may have begun as a fast fix, a response to loss and desperation, but what grew inside it, slowly, painfully, wonderfully, was something very real. They were not a fairy tale. They were not flawless. They tried though. Every day. And in Port Charles that type of endeavor was more uncommon, and more powerful, than any epic romance. General Hospital spoilers for the next 3 weeks, June 16th to July 4th, show that there will be some fireworks for new couples, and Drew Kane may discover that he is still going down. Cody Bell will also play a dangerous Ava Jerome game, so let's go over all of the potential dangers. The week of June 16th to 20th will provide a pleasant surprise for Lulu Spencer, which could involve Dante Falconeri and Harrison Chase reconciling after a term in prison. That may give Lulu hope that she may be able to repair her relationship with Dante sooner rather than later. Deep down, Lulu will always love Dante. Therefore, she may decide she must make amends. However, Lulu will wind up enjoying drinks with Isaiah Gannon in the interim. The program appears to be testing Isaiah with numerous love interest alternatives, so could Lulu be an option for him? Of course, Isaiah would have been with Jordan Ashford if he had his way, but she ended things because of her Jen Sidwell plot. Will Jordan have any regrets after opening up to Anna Devane? Regardless, Jordan has been spending a lot of time with Curtis Ashford, who is on the outs with Portia Robinson. As Curtis continues to drive Portia away, he may have the opportunity to reconnect with Jordan on a deeper level. Across town, Sonny Corinthos will question Sidwell, while Michael Corinthos deals with his family's problems. Michael and Sasha Gilmore Corbin are about to have a heart-to-heart, which could lead to Michael playing a more active part in Daisy Gilmore Corinthos' life. Willow Tate will have to make a decision and publicize it. Will Willow leave Drew if it means getting access to her children? During the week of June 23rd to 27th, there may be some unexpected revelations about what really happened in court. Judge Eva Heron appears to have been bullied into finding in Michael's favor, but who went to such lengths to secure the victory? Whether it was Tracy Quartermain or someone else, Michael might be in for a huge mess if he gets any details on what happened. Speaking of messes, Jocelyn Jacks will have to deal with some of them courtesy to Emma Scorpio Drake, but she may become closer to Vaughn in the process. Vaughn and Jocelyn appear to be ready to blend business and pleasure, so we'll see if it results in a genuine relationship or simply some sizzling in the heat of the moment. Since the 4th of July is approaching, Some sizzling should take place between June 30th and July 4th. That could provide an opportunity for some new GH pairings to get things going with some pyrotechnics. Emma and Giovanni Gio Palmieri may heat things up, but how will he react to her seduction of Professor Henry Hank Dalton? We can't forget Cody Bell's attempt to seduce Ava, especially now that he works for Christina Corinthos Davis. Ava appears to be intrigued by Cody, therefore it is possible that she will succumb to temptation soon. The question is whether Cody's ploy will continue, or if he will develop genuine feelings for Ava along the road. Regardless, Cody will be playing with fire. You can guarantee Ava will discover Christina arranged everything down the line, which may lead to her releasing her wrath on both Christina and Cody. Drew will still go down eventually. Drew's nasty side will inevitably resurface, particularly after the judge's blackmail scandal is revealed. Week of unrivaled drama. The air, dense with unspoken desires and seething resentments, was ripe for the dramatic alchemy that only a place like General Hospital could generate. As the old order broke down and new constellations of love and conflict began to emerge. This week, the fireworks weren't just for the holidays. They were prepared to go off between unexpected people, as one continued his inevitable decline and another performed a risky dance. The most exciting of these emergent themes entailed a delicate dance of new pairings, especially in the aftermath of Willow Tate's critical decision. Her decision to withdraw from the bitter custody battle, to favor her children's well-being over her own injured ego, and Drew Kane's increasingly desperate pushing, marked a significant turnaround. It wasn't a surrender, but an act of self-preservation and mother love, a quiet rejection of the dramatic expectations that had dominated her life for far too long. This mature shift, however, created a vacuum. Drew, whose manipulative influence had caused much of her previous strife, would definitely feel the pain of rejection, not just of his legal strategy, but also of his mere presence in her life as her major confidant and companion. Willow's newfound clarity, resulting from the painful discovery of how far she had deviated from her actual self, may open her up to connections based on genuine support and understanding, rather than codependency or shared grief. Could this result in a startling détente, perhaps a tentative friendship with Michael Corinthos? Without attorneys or agendas, their chat at the boathouse hinted at a lingering sensitivity, a realization of their common history and mutual grief. If they could fully co-parent for the first time in a long time, respecting each other's duties and creating a stable atmosphere for Wiley and Amelia, it would be a game-changer in their turbulent relationship. This would not be a romantic rekindling, not yet and possibly never, but rather a strong platonic partnership based on their shared love for their children. The fireworks here would be quiet eruptions of understanding, the breakdown of old resentments, and the formation of a new, healthier family unit, a novel thought in a place accustomed to mayhem. Consider the dramatic tension of Michael and Willow negotiating this new territory, continually tempted to return to old patterns of accusation, but persistently choosing peace. Their mutual acquaintances, especially Carly, would wait with bated breath, some dubious, others cautiously enthusiastic, knowing how easily the fragile truce could be broken. This modest settlement, while appearing unimportant to the casual observer, would be a watershed moment in their personal stories, compelling both Michael and Willow to develop beyond the constraints of their previous heartbreaks. Beyond Willow's orbit, Joe's heartbreaking earful about his adoption and the long-held mystery of his paternity promised to completely upend his world, as well as the possibility of profoundly dramatic new connections. A young man whose identity had just been exposed as a carefully crafted lie would definitely seek comfort and understanding. Whom would he turn to? Brooke Lynn, who was present throughout the overheard chat, took the brunt of his first fury and perplexity. However, their shared fragility could result in a deeper, more difficult bond. They are cousins, but the intensity of this moment has the potential to form a one-of-a-kind connection, a kinship founded on lie. But, more intriguing, who else would Gio gravitate toward? Perhaps someone who has experienced the sting of family secrets or betrayals. This mental upheaval may bring him to unexpected allies, perhaps a surprising romantic relationship. Could he connect with someone who is also lost and yearning for the truth? The fireworks here would be the furious fights when he confronts his family, demanding answers, as well as the soft sparks of new relationships emerging from the crucible of his anguish.